Hello, and welcome to the College of Arts and Sciences tutorial for creating your ePortfolio. This is one of many tools that can help you maximize your time in college and prepare for whatever future you envision. It's never too early to start cataloging your accomplishments, so regardless of where you are in your program, now's a good time to get engaged in the process. In this tutorial, we'll cover some of the reasons having an electronic portfolio is valuable, what kind of content goes into the portfolio, how you develop that content, and where you choose to host it. Creating a portfolio helps hold you accountable, both in terms of setting goals and in tracking how you meet those goals. It's also helpful to collect your accomplishments, skills, etc. in one place so you can start identifying gaps in your knowledge or preparedness. Finally, we live in a world that often relies on our digital presences. Once you have an ePortfolio, you're much more visible to recruiters and prospective employers. It's important to control how you appear to those individuals, so what goes into the portfolio is equally important. In order to create meaningful experiences, you need to set goals. Keep in mind that these goals should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based, or SMART. You can track your progress towards these goals in multiple ways. You could choose to think chronologically or thematically. There are other ways of tracking your progress, so whatever you choose, make sure it's a system that works best for you. As you start to list what you've done, think about what you haven't yet done, but may need to do in the future. These gaps could be the target for your next goal. When you believe your portfolio accurately represents where you are now, make it visible. Recruiters will find you, employers will research you, and you'll build a reputation, which is especially helpful for those of you who hope to work in freelance careers. It might seem overwhelming to think about all of the details that need to go into a portfolio. One resource that will help you narrow down that content is NACE, or the National Association of Colleges and Employers. NACE has developed a list of 8 competencies that, once attained and demonstrated, broadly prepare college graduates for a successful transition into the workplace. Among other advantages, the portfolio will help you demonstrate your attainment of some of these competencies, including number 7, or career management, and, if the portfolio is well constructed, number 4, or digital technology. Once you know what competencies you need, you can start thinking about how to obtain them. The most important way, especially in your early years in college, will be through your classes. That means choosing options not just because they meet a requirement, but because they provide you with a skill. Of course, they should also be interesting, since college isn't only about the future. If you have identified a career already, you could conduct information interviews, which would provide you with more insight into that career and help you develop your oral communication, or competency 2. You can volunteer in a field you want to explore, or shadow professionals in that field. You could intern, or work entry-level jobs. Or you could conduct undergraduate research. This option is useful if your goal is graduate school, but don't underestimate the professional value of research either. Visit the Office of Undergraduate Research on the 2nd floor of the library for more information. These are only some options, and you can find others. What's important to remember, though, is that each time you do something to obtain a competency, you need to record that in your portfolio. The act of recording will demonstrate multiple competencies if you do it well. First, you need to create a digital artifact, or representation of what you actually did. You need to contextualize the artifact. For instance, did this happen in a class? And you need to link the artifact to the competency or competencies you believe you obtained. You might be wondering what this looks like, so here's an example that uses the ePortfolio as the digital artifact. In the case of the portfolio, you actually have something tangible, but if you didn't produce something, you can simply describe your action. Then you can discuss the context in which you built the portfolio. And finally, you can link to the competencies you want to demonstrate. Keep in mind, some of these artifacts may be relatively simple, while others will take more time to describe. We recommend using the language of NACE in the early stages of your development, but if you want to find new language once you've mastered the basics, you're welcome to do so. Because digital technologies are constantly evolving, you have many options for hosting your portfolio. We'll cover 4 of the free ones, including your Canvas ePortfolio, Google Drive, LinkedIn, and Portfolio. As a student, you have access to a moderately sophisticated program through Canvas. You're in the system every day, so ideally it would be fairly easy to add content. You can share a link to your portfolio individually or on a third-party site, which makes it accessible. Keep in mind, though, that you only have access to Canvas while you're a student. Google Drive will be available to you as long as you maintain the account. You've probably already become familiar with the system, since your USF email is Google-based. The downside is that this is not a very visually attractive system, and therefore would not represent your mastery of digital tools. If you want a place to store your work before you make it public, however, this could be an easy place to start. LinkedIn has multiple advantages. You should develop a LinkedIn profile independent from the portfolio in order to network with other professionals. And if you choose to host your portfolio here, the advantage will be in your visibility on one of the most widely used professional platforms. LinkedIn has many shortcuts for adding content as well, including ways to list skills, which you can then have others who are familiar with your work endorse you for. You can also list accomplishments, education, etc. One of the newer players in the portfolio game is Portfolio. Imagine if Facebook and LinkedIn had a baby, and you'll have a fairly good grasp of the system. Of the platforms covered, this one is the most sophisticated. It has many of the same benefits of LinkedIn, and you can actually sync it with your LinkedIn account. Its unique advantages include added flexibility for building your portfolio, including the ability to host unlimited artifacts in numerous forms, new ways to connect with companies, and a virtual assistant to offer useful tips. Like LinkedIn and Google Drive, you will also maintain access once you graduate. Now that you've seen some of your options for portfolio platforms, and we've thought about the why, what, and how of the process, take a few minutes and set a short-term goal, something you could accomplish before the end of the semester. How will you accomplish that goal? How will you represent it when you have? Don't worry if it doesn't turn out exactly as you imagined. The value is as much in the process as the product. Good luck!